Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is MrMobile. I hope I'm actually live. I'm sorry if I sound a little unsure. The last stream somehow cut off like the last few words and the first few words. So now I'm once again unsure about OBS, even though we were a little bit on the right when it comes to some level of confidence when it comes to OBS. I do hope you can see me. I do hope you can hear me. I know this is a little bit of an impromptu stream because we just had one 12 hours ago. This is a reaction video. Now, I have hoped to make like a reaction video that would encompass... I'm sorry, I'm just gonna... Yeah, I'm sorry, I was in noise cancellation mode. It's too good. I couldn't hear myself like very muted, which is a little bit unsettling. I wanted to make a video reacting to like multiple reviews of like the Galaxy Z Flip 5 and the Fold 5 and the Pixel Fold and comparisons, but I've seen like very little content that actually appealed to me. Like Marquez just did a review of the Z Flip 5 and it definitely wasn't a bad video, but quite honestly it felt a little lazy by his standards. Like he didn't even like talk about most specs. He focused on like the outer screen, which I understand the basic idea is like that. Oh, but the other specs aren't that much changed in comparison to last year, and he made some constructive suggestions. I will change to Chrome because it's confusing when you guys have to look at OBS. Sorry, it's almost midnight. I really wanted to get this stream out because I'm not sure when I will be able to stream again. So what I found, the only thing that I really liked was from Daniel from ZONEofTECH, a really great guy with a really great channel. I don't have to tell you, obviously, I think most people know. I apologize for me having to go through Chrome. I am apologizing so much in this video, basically, but the point is that usually I pre-download videos and then I integrate them directly into OBS. For some reason, none of my downloader apps worked, and this doesn't even have anything to do with like legalese. Like I have YouTube Premium, but the way YouTube Premium works in Chrome, it's a mess. It has to like go through the normal player, but OBS doesn't work really well with like non-standard display aspect ratios, like the one on my MacBook. So I would have to constantly adjust. It's a mess, basically. I'm very glad that you guys are joining. The reason why I'm also doing this, I wanted to announce my Patreon. For that, I will do very quickly this. So you can see me full screen. Again, to apologize for something else, I'm streaming from my MacBook because I do have my iPhone with me, but I forgot my MagSafe attachment from Belkin that goes up, and so the iPhone can work as part of continuity camera with the MacBook. Regardless, I wanted to let you know that I now have a Patreon. It's definitely not a must for you to subscribe. There currently is no extra content. I think it's quite fair if in an early phase of my content creation, all the content that I produce is for everyone. I will eventually open up like a Discord chat and something like that. But currently, I know most of you communicate with me through Twitter anyway. So I don't think much is lost if we give that some time until the community has grown a little. Again, feel free to support. I'm definitely not extorting you here or anything. I am a med student, so while doing this, I still have to finish like my last half year of studies and then like my practical year. Yeah, I would love to continue doing this without finding extra jobs or anything. So that's basically it. That's a very small diversion. We are getting back to the good stuff. For anybody who is now here, I can see we have like a few people watching. Please let me know if the audio is okay, both from my part and from the video from Daniel. But let's get into it, right? So I'm getting myself a little smaller, and we're switching to Chrome, and we're switching to the beginning of the video.
The new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 and the Google Pixel Folds are the most expensive foldables that you can buy right now in 2023.
I think that's somewhat a good point to pause on right away. I fear that I will make like out of a 14-minute video, a 40-minute video at the least, if not longer. I think the pricing is kind of insane, given that, like, especially for like the Pixel Fold, which I understand is like first generation, they probably have a lot of R&D costs to make up on, but like, come on guys, like the camera is more like on the Pixel 7a, except for like the extra zoom, but you will see later in the video that that extra zoom camera is completely worthless. It's a custom G2 processor, which is worse than the chip in the Z Fold 4, much less the Z Fold 5. It's definitely worse than anything on iPhone, so like I have no idea how like I understand that like the mechanical cost of everything comes together, and Samsung finally fixed like their hinge somewhat, so apparently that's where the money has gone for Samsung. But overall, I just honestly think that it's a little bit of like arrogant in terms of like what they can get away with, knowing that there's like this enthusiast part of the market that will buy like whatever like flagship foldable is currently available, and in my opinion it's just not a very healthy point to start from. I think if they would have like gotten rid of the flip models on the Samsung side, and maybe made this like $1,500, even like $1,600, I think it would be somewhat fair. It still would be more expensive than the Ultra, which is a better phone. But yeah, so it's relevant that Daniel is mentioning this, because it contextualizes those phones not just as expensive foldables, but they are more expensive than any flagship, and that has to matter for something.
Both starting at $1,800. And while you can get discounts and free accessories if you pre-order, using the links below especially.
Yeah, I will also pause on this. It should say, I think, a lot if like manufacturers will like sell you accessories that they sell for like $300 or $400 for free, because you ordered another device that is like ridiculously expensive. Like, I understand if this was like in the beginning, the original Fold, it came in like this premium package, which could include like the watch and stuff like that. But like at this point, why not lower the price by at least $100 and get rid of those incentives? It's very clear that they don't believe their watches, their buds, and anything will sell in the right amount, and they don't believe that their foldables will sell at the right amount. So what they try to do is they try to capitalize on FOMO and give you those great like launch bundles. But what you get in the end is a product that is unnecessarily bundled with something that you might not need, right? What if you have like the Galaxy Watch 4? Why would you need the Galaxy Watch 6? Or right away, right? What if you already have a pair of recent Galaxy Buds? I mean, they update them like what feels like every 3 months. There's like a different Galaxy Buds kinds of type, like from the Live to the Plus to, I don't know, the Plus Ultra, Jinchuriki Power Mode. I have honestly no idea what is current on the Samsung side anymore. But so it's such a weird proposition.
They're still very expensive products. So which one is the better choice? We'll compare everything from the outer screen to the inner screen to the hinge, the cameras, the software, the battery, and so much more. And until then, if you're looking to keep your foldables safe, check out Spigen, our sponsor for this video. Spigen has released a variety. The Pixel Fold literally has pretty much the best outer display on any foldable out right now. It looks very wide, but in fact, it is actually similar in width to the Pixel 7 Pro.
Yeah, I think that's a big plus. I think that kind of makes it, though, like, it's not like I want to hate on those things, right? But it kind of contextualizes, like, just how bad the idea of foldables is. If the solution to making them better is making them progressively bigger in the way that smartphones have gotten bigger, but you're making the outer screen bigger because people still want to use it like a traditional smartphone, right? You aren't just making it bigger because it's now a better foldable. It's just a better phone. The foldable part is inside. The entire point that people were making in the beginning of the foldables were like, oh, the outer screen is like less capable, I can like basically ignore it, reduce my usage, but then when I open it up, I am like now a power user. So what happened to that? It all adds cost, it all adds weight, it all adds complexity. Hey, do you want to add some complexity here too? Here. Say hi. She was sleeping on the bed. Oh my god. Oh yes, you are getting aggressive. I got it. She was sleeping on the bed the second yeah, I love you too. Now I understand how other streamers feel with pets. So getting back to the point, so making those outer screens bigger and bigger, to me only points out how flawed the entire idea was. The original push that some were making was like, oh, the outer screen is bad by modern standards, so it will encourage like less usage. I want to say hi again. Oh my god. Yes. Guess that's the magic of live streaming. She's really curious about it. Portland, Jamaica. Is it Jamaica? Yeah. Oh my god, that's awesome, Krieger Bailey. I'm really glad to have people from all over the world. I guess that comes from streaming at all kinds of different time zones, at different times for me, which means that I appeal to different time zones. So. As you have probably seen, like I have now a visitor during my streams for the next couple of weeks. I will be streaming with my cat Bella. So yeah, I've said basically my piece, that I don't think it's actually good that outer screens are growing because it reflects bad on the entire idea of foldable. So let me play a little more.
Phones is just that it is shorter, whereas Samsung's outer screen is very tall and also incredibly narrow, which makes it almost impossible to type on. And
if I'm not wrong, the width of the outer screen from Samsung is almost the exact same width of the iPhone mini, isn't it? So it's definitely not impossible to use. I would say it's uncomfortable because balancing that kind of weight and the thickness with such a small width, I would say, yeah, of course. But I definitely wouldn't put it as unusable as some.
Browsing the web isn't great either, as everything is just way too compacted. Like 90% of the times when I was using a Samsung Fold, I would actually use it on the inner display.
Yeah, kind of how it's supposed to be.
Because of how difficult the outer screen was to use. Whereas with a Pixel Fold, 60% of the times actually, I was using the outer screen. I do have to give props to Samsung for having a significantly brighter outer screen, which does make a difference outdoors, but other than that, I would definitely pick the Pixel Fold's outer screen any time of day. Which brings us to the inner screen. And this is where the tables turn, as Samsung's display is far superior in every single way, aside from one. To start with, Samsung has significant...
Yeah, like, and this is what I want to mention, like, when people are saying, oh, it's like Google's first foldable, oh, okay, so why isn't it on the same level as even like a Fold 3, right? Like, much less a Fold 4, and certainly not a Fold 5, so it's kind of crazy to me what people are excusing here. This looks ridiculous, this looks objectively bad. Great, you are liking it, Krieger Bailey. What are you thinking of the audio? Should I change any settings? Is it working well? I didn't have as much time to check out my setup, basically.
Thinner bezels, which are also uniform as opposed to the chunky, ununiform bezels on the Pixel Fold. Samsung has also incorporated their front camera underneath the display. so that you get a full screen uninterrupted experience.
Yeah, I want to say a compliment to Samsung here. I think this is commitment, actually. Like, yeah, I don't like the quality of that camera, but like, how often will you actually use it? So I'm fine with that. Like, yes, for video calls, I think for video calls it's more than fine. Plus, you can use the outer screen, and for selfies, you would just like fold it and like you would fold it out and you would put it like with the back towards you, and then you would use the rear cameras, much better quality cameras, while looking at the outer screen. So that's basically perfect. Audio is awesome for you. Really glad to hear that, because I sound weird to myself in my AirPods. don't
The
know why.
plastic screen protector that is there to protect the fragile inner display doesn't reach the edges on the Pixel.
This
Fold,
looks so
which means that
cheap.
dust and dirt can get in, whereas on the Samsung, I never really had this issue. Also, Samsung's display can get noticeably brighter, which comes in handy when you're watching HDR content as well as outdoors in direct sunlight, which is where the Pixel display...
Yeah, so basically the usability of Samsung's phone is much better, the design is much better, everything is much more refined. Like, even Samsung, who like this year they basically upgraded to a newer generation of like of the hinge. Like, yeah, even their trash hinge was still better than this.
Did struggle. Like I said, Samsung's inner display is superior in every single way, aside from one, and that is when you're watching videos in semi-folded mode. Because of the super tall aspect ratio of the
Don't do that.
Samsung, you'll get these massive black bars on the sides. Of course, you can always zoom in, but the content will be heavily cropped, whereas the Pixel Fold is much more usable in this semi-folded / tabletop mode. Which brings us to the design and the build quality. And the most important aspect here is, of course, the hinge. With the Fold 5, Samsung has upgraded the hinge to one that closes flat, although there is still a tiny bit of a gap compared to the Pixel Folds. Both hinges support infinite adjustability, so that you can use them in semi-folded mode whenever you want. So far, they both seem really good, but the Pixel's hinge has two major issues. The first one is that the folding mechanism is on the edges of the hinge rather than in the middle like it is on the side.
Yeah, like, I usually don't comment much on like jerry-rig everything stuff. I think some of his testing is completely worthless, and it's more like ASMR, like destruction ASMR, than it is like a relevant test when it comes to smartphone fragility. You could argue that like his scratch tests are the most relevant, while also being the most predictable parts of his videos. But yeah, I believe me, I wouldn't stop making those videos if I were him, given how ridiculously popular they are for relatively little effort. Oh my god, the hot takes don't stop today, I'm sorry. But like, yeah, like his hinge coverage is actually interesting when it comes to foldables. Basically all of them are somewhat trash. If you really want to try it in most relevant usage, day-to-day usage, I will actually not poo-poo them as much as I do the general idea of foldables, because I think people should still be somewhat nice to their expensive hardware. But yeah, it should definitely be much more durable in general. On the Pixel, the Galaxy seems to be much better than it was before.
Samsung, and this is the reason why we have bezels that are so thick. The second issue, and this is really the big one, is that the Pixel's hinge doesn't open flat. Instead, it opens at a few degrees off of one angle.
I hate to pause again, guys, but look at this. Like, how cheap does this look? Like, I know that Apple isn't perfect, like, haha, bra case for the AirPods Max, right? But like, do you imagine Apple ever shipping this? Like, sure, products bend and keyboards break and water resistant. Again, this doesn't apply to Apple. Apple is usually incredibly precise with their water resistance rating, but some phones have been known to have a water resistance rating that isn't always reliable. Like, this looks like garbage. Like, imagine not being like a techie, but like really interested in like the Pixel Fold for its form factor, and then like getting this. First of all, look at all those holes. right? Like, okay, the speaker, the microphone, I understand there's some redundancy, but it already looks a little weird. But hey, some points for being symmetrical, which Apple isn't able to do. But then this isn't symmetry. This isn't design. This is a prototype. I'm sorry. This should never come into the hands of consumers. And people who are excusing things because it's a first generation device. We are on the Pixel Fold 5. Google would have been literally better off and would have a much better branding exercise if they came together with Samsung the way they did for WatchOS, Wear OS, right? The Android, the name always changes. First it was like Tizen for what Samsung was using, and I'm so confused by the branding there, and it's very late. But like, they would have been much better off just coming together with Samsung, helping them with the UI and everything else, instead of making this. Like, come freaking on.
So I always find myself kind of like forcing the hinge to fully open.
Guys, like, am I so unfair? Like, we have now more people watching. Please let me know. Like, am I so unfair here? Like, is this excusable for $1,800?
Makes me nervous.
I wouldn't excuse this on like a new book. If a new book was like this crooked when I bought it, I would return it. I wouldn't have bought it from the bookstore, but let's say I ordered something and that's the way the book arrived. I would have sent it back.
I'm gonna break the phone. Whereas Samsung's hinge doesn't have this issue as it's spring-loaded, so it automatically opens at 180 degrees.
That's how it should
really
be.
My biggest complaint with the Pixel Fold, the hinge. It just feels very cheap. It feels like the hinge of a prototype. In fact, there have been a number of reports of Pixel Folds breaking, either because some dirt got into the exposed area
so
of the screen,
bad.
or for various other reasons, which does give me some serious durability concerns. I personally haven't had any issues myself, and it is worth mentioning that those issues could appear on the Z Fold 5 as well, especially since this is Samsung's first new hinge since the Z Fold 2. Although, I would definitely put my money on the Pixel Fold having more issues than the Z Fold 5, considering that this is Google's very first foldable. I guess the only good thing about the Pixel Fold's hinge is that it does allow the phone to be considerably thinner, both when open and when closed, which does make it far more pocketable, as it resembles a phone in a case, whereas the Z Fold 5 does kind of resemble a TV remote in your pockets.
Like, I don't get that argument. It's like, oh, it resembles the phone. Okay, good for it. Like, I don't mind that this device is like a little thicker, but like narrower and longer. Like, who cares? Yeah. It's like Krieger. It's Krieger, right? It's not Krieger. Facts. The Pixel Fold. I think you're saying it's not worth $1,800. The knot was covered up by the heart in the YouTube chat, so I'm glad you agree.
Props to Samsung for being able to keep its weight down to just 253 grams, as opposed to 283 on the Pixel Fold.
And just for context for my American friends, like, and people who just use the wrong system for weight, like 240 grams is the weight of the iPhone Pro Max, both the 13 Pro Max and the 14 Pro Max, which is made out of stainless steel and stuff like that, which again, the hinges are made of steel, so that adds weight to the weight. I've always considered the Pro Max phones to be borderline uncomfortable, right, or borderline still comfortable, and they are well balanced, and they definitely aren't as thick when as those devices are when folded up. But like 253 grams, I'm inclined to like maybe even 260, even like 265. I could see like being fine for a device that is basically like a compressed phone when it's like not unfolded. 283. Now, granted, if you were to make like a Pro Max equivalent as foldable, I fully agree that it would be like 300 grams. Given like Apple currently uses stainless steel and stuff like that. Obviously, once we switch to titanium, there are other things that could help bring the weight down. But like 283 grams, man, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I understand this isn't maybe as comfortably built. But like 283, even with like that passport shape, is just insane to me. It's pronounced Krieger, or it's actually pronounced Krieger, like the German word for warrior. That's awesome. Wasn't there like a Krieger in the show Archer? I always forget. I watched it like ages ago. But like, yeah, I'm from Germany, so yeah, that's why I in German, your name would be Krie, right? So that's why I was confused why it's EI. But obviously, I'm not judging. I know my name, for example, has no resemblance to how it's spoken, given how it's written in German, because it was like translated from a Romanic language, but written in Cyrillic letters originally. So yeah. Maybe I will do a stream at some point about my life or something like that once I have absolutely no ideas left.
Yeah. My Henke is very grateful for. In terms of the colors, the Pixel Fold only comes in two: Obsidian, which is this frosted glass gray, and Porcelain, which is sort of like a cream. The Z Fold 5 comes in Phantom Black, Cream, and Icy Blue.
I like the colors.
As well as two exclusive colors if you order from Samsung's online store, Gray and Blue, which do have this dual tone look. Which
I like those too.
Speaking of something else that I also think you'd like, earlier we mentioned Spiegel's foldable cases and their new slim.
Guys, Krieger. It means warrior. Believe me, I know that. I'm not a native German speaker, but I've been living in Germany since I was 6 years old. So yeah, I know that it means warrior. Guys. Like Daniel has like the slim armor Spigen case. Have you heard about something called Patreon, where you can now support me? You can find the link if you go through like my channel, where you will also find the links to my Twitter account where you can follow me. And then you can choose to support me, like a struggling math student financially. I'm kidding, by the way, with that ad read. I'm also definitely not struggling. So if anybody has financial problems of any kind, don't consider supporting me. I want you to keep your money for yourself. If somebody here is filthy rich, throw me a bone and subscribe to my Patreon, basically.
Armor Pro for the Fold 5.
Like, do some socialism here, okay, guys?
Houses the hinge perfectly, offering unbeatable protection against
like
bump.
And now it's even thicker. Like, come on. Like, I understand, but it's like, guys, if you actually want great cases for those kinds of devices, get like the Pitaka Kevlar cases. Like, this is what also like my phone is built out of. Like, not my phone, like the case that I use, like basically always. I've had that similar case for my 10s Max before that, and I'm very, very happy with it. And I think that's the best case for a foldable because it adds the least amount of weight and thickness. Riveting Tail Chap, I am glad to see you also here. When I get rich, I get you, man. Yeah, exactly. This is why I'm so chill about it. Believe me, like, I appreciate any kind of support you throw at me. For now, it's also more than enough if you watch my videos and subscribe and comment and all that jazz. But primarily, I do this because it's fun. Come on, it's awesome when you guys join. I think the more of you join, the longer I want to do it. Now that I don't have a video preloaded, I'm thinking maybe we can react to some other videos maybe that you can suggest. I do have some time. It's midnight and I don't have to wake up until like 11 a.m. in the morning.
And phones. Then you also have the ThinFit Pro Crystal Clear case.
Some say Apple has like complicated
while
names.
Being more pocket friendly and still keeping the hinge intact, so when your phone folds, there's no compromise to safety. And their new AirSkin case, which now comes in their iconic 01 design, is just 1.1 millimeters thin. This case is a great blend of functionality and looks with a see-through teardown style, which is one of their most popular designs. The AirSkin also comes in a variety of other new colorway options, including this.
It's longer than I expected.
Because of this, the Z Fold 5 uses the same main cameras as the regular S22 and S23, whereas the Pixel Fold uses camera specs that are in between those of the Pixel 6a and the Pixel 7a. If we look at
I actually, yeah, like Krieger, you're saying like your name is from a soccer player. Yeah, I think I kind of vaguely remember from like the phase when I followed German soccer and I was reading a little bit up on history. I think there was like a famous Krieger soccer player, but I'm not a big sports fan in general. So if this was like more anime inspired, then I would know what know exactly what you're talking about.
Look at some examples. They're both very similar in terms of the sharpness. It's just that Samsung does tend to dial up the saturation to some insane.
Okay, like I like comparison shots. I don't think those are particularly like, I think this is bad, to be quite honest. I think this is way over processed by modern standards, and I've been actually like repeatedly critical of Apple, like in the way that like ever since the iPhone 11 days they've been also like over processing shots. You could make the argument that this is probably a little too cool, and the truth is probably somewhere in between, but I still prefer the Pixel kind of cinematography.
I myself do actually prefer Samsung's image, but the Pixels is
no,
more true to life. So it is a matter of taste in the end. So
it's
now
not.
Take a look at a sample.
It's not. If it's something is more true to life, you can still oversaturate it afterwards really easily. If your ground truth is an image that has nothing based on truth in terms of saturation, it's actually really difficult to get back to normality. So if you are in any kind of like a connoisseur of like good photography, like, sorry guys, my mouth is mouse is overly sensitive, then you shouldn't prefer this. This is why I've always said, like, this is for example why my phone is always tuned to like Pro RAW, because it's the best.
That doesn't have a lot of green, we can see that the Pixel does actually perform better here. With
Yeah,
Samsung washing out the picture
yeah,
towards the
way better
top. If we
contrast,
take a look at
way
the
more
ultimate
detail.
module, Samsung does perform much better.
Yeah,
because we not
okay.
only have a wider field of view, but we also get less noise in the shadows and an overall brighter image.
This has been like repeatedly like disappointing to me across the Pixels, which is they have like really good algorithms in general for still photography, and they usually will have like a very well tuned main camera, but I never like their ultra wide results. And come on, yeah, she wants some attention again. Come on, give me some extra subscribers, like the power of pets. Come on, yeah, you can shut. She's a very loving one, but she's also temperamental. Like, whenever she doesn't get what she wants, she will let you know. So, like, and the zoom cameras, we will get to that as well in this particular case. But I think that the compromise that that Google made, even on like the Pixel Pro, where like you have like good far out zoom, but basically like garbage middle zoom, which is the zoom that I like most, between like 3 and 4.5-ish x. Like that to me is like such a bad compromise, and I will be criticizing the iPhone 15 Pro Max if it completely gets rid of like decent 3 to 4x zoom so that it can have fantastic 5 to 6x zoom. So yeah, the balance just isn't there.
Image. The zoom module is a very interesting one, as Samsung only has a 3x zoom module compared to the 5x periscope module on the Pixel.
Yeah, so what will happen here? For one, I did pre-watch, but it's also very easy. Now, what do you have here, right? You have a larger sensor, which should be great, but you have a much worse, I will say worse in this particular case, because it accounts for light aggregation, which is very important for small sensors like what we have on smartphones. But you have like this f by 3.1 aperture, and here it's by 2.4, which means that this will capture dramatically less light, even when working with a larger sensor, which could account for like this being worse than this. Is like at this, not even at the same zoom range, but at like a 3x, this will obviously be significantly better. But I would argue that there's a good point that this might even be like at 5x about as good or even slightly better.
Folds. Weirdly enough, if we zoom into 10x, at which point they would both be using digital zoom, the pixel is sharper, but the difference between the two is very minor, which I really wasn't expecting. So it turns out that zoom isn't that much better on the Pixel Fold, despite...
And again, you get that like sharper 5 and 10, especially like the 10x results, for the compromise of having like 0 good quality 3 to 4x zoom, which is what you're getting with the Samsung.
The 5x periscope zoom module. In terms of video, I do actually prefer the video from the Pixel Fold.
Yeah, it
the
looks
colors
much
are
better.
surprisingly more vibrant on the Pixel, and there is less post-processing sharpening added.
Guys, let me know. Am I crazy for like those takes on like here the Fold looks better, but it looks like this wasn't even like focused properly. I don't know. Like, let me know. Like in general, like how you followed like the Pixel phones and Samsungs in general. Do you disagree with like my take on like what the appropriate zoom range is? I would love to have like more data basically from you guys, so whenever I talk in the future, I know that it's somewhat inspired by my community. We are a very small community, but I hope that we can be a very high quality community basically.
The thing that I wish was better was the stabilization, which is quite shaky on the Pixel compared to the Z Fold 5.
Yeah, so basically the cameras are like iPhone 11 era style. Some results are probably worse. So yeah, it's really not optimal.
In terms of night mode, Pixels have pretty much always had one of the best, if not the best, night mode on any phone. But at least when it comes to the Pixel Fold, that is no longer the case. The Pixel Fold does still have more natural colors, but when it comes to the overall detail, the Z Fold 5 is able to capture significantly more. And especially in this second shot right here,
yeah, that's a really good photo actually.
And low light video is an even bigger difference, as the Pixel Fold's inferior camera hardware just cannot capture enough light, and its Tensor G2 chip just isn't powerful enough to process every single frame from the video in real time like it does for the photos. Selfies, however, are pretty good on the Pixel, and I do actually prefer them over the Fold 5.
Really?
As they do look much more natural. Also, the Pixel Fold's inner display front camera is much better than the one that's under the display.
That's a trash camera.
In terms of the software, even though they're both foldable phones running Android, there are a lot of differences here. Google takes a more Apple approach where you don't get a lot of pre-installed apps and everything is quite simple to use and minimal, whereas Samsung is packed with a lot of features and options. Samsung lets you have folders in the app drawer and organize and rename them however you wish, whereas Google just lists your app in alphabetical order. Samsung lets you install apps like GoodLock and customize the behavior of the dual displays so that some apps, like Google Maps for example, always continue on the other screen when you close your phone. Google does not. So yeah, the amount of customization that you get with Samsung
that's
is
interesting.
very impressive.
I think
But
that
it
would be
doesn't simply end in
appropriate like
customization. The entire software experience
behavior
is
for
far better on the
foldable.
Fold 5. When you're taking a photo, you can just hold your palm, and the Samsung would start a timer and take a photo. With the Pixel, you have to do that manually. Google lets you run 2 apps side by side, whereas with the Samsung, you can have 3 or even 4. Samsung lets you drag and drop apps directly from the multitasking panel to enable side-by-side multitasking.
As it should be.
With the Pixel, you
iPad
cannot actually
inspired.
do that, and you have to do it from the dock, which is just not very intuitive at first. Then on the Fold 5, you can have one home screen for the outer display and then an entirely different home screen for the inner display. Whereas with the Pixel
Guys,
Fold,
this
you
is
get
what
the
I'm
same
talking about. Like, Google should have worked with Samsung to optimize all of their apps as they did for the Pixel, but then actually learned from all the additional functionality that Samsung offered and just applied like some Google level polish to it to make it smoother, maybe more, a little bit more energy efficient with like the core operating system. And we would have gotten a much better foldable in one device instead of having 2 suboptimal devices with very clear compromises.
home screen, but mirrored. So if you have 2 home screen pages when the phone is closed, when you open it, those 2 will be, well, just
I'm actually fine with that.
Each side acts like one outer screen.
I think that's probably how Apple would handle it.
You cannot have widgets or apps in the middle of the
I'm fine with
display,
that
that's
as
where the
well.
separation line is, which I don't know.
The
feels
crease
very
sucks,
restrictive
so
and
I don't want
quite,
any reason
also,
to
the entire
touch
UI
or
on the
look at
Pixel
it.
Fold is just way too massive. Like, even after adjusting the text size and the display size, everything was still too big. I did find a solution to this, which was to adjust the home screen grid, which is actually in wallpaper and style, not home settings like you would expect. You have to adjust it to 5 by 5. Once you do that, you will get quite a bit more space on your screen and everything will be smaller. And this doesn't even scratch the surface when it comes to the biggest issue in terms of the Pixel Fold software, and that is the fact that this is a landscape device rather than a portrait device like on the Z Fold 5. What this means is that whenever you're using an app on the Pixel Fold, that app will run in tablet mode, which for Google's own apps, that's great since they're optimized, but when it comes to third-party apps, you'll get these huge black bars on the sides. Now, there is a way to fix that, which is to rotate the Pixel Fold in a portrait orientation.
I have to puke. Oh, this. Oh my god, this looks so bad.
Unoptimized third-party app, which is basically like almost all. The Z Fold 5, of course, doesn't have this issue being in portrait. And just using the Z Fold 5 feels like having a computer in my pocket, especially with features such as using the bottom of the display as a trackpad, or not even to mention DeX, which can literally turn your phone into a
like
computer.
where's like Google's DeX version? Like I have always been of the mind that DeX is like a decent idea, but not well enough implemented. But like my honest question is like, and yes, I've tried DeX. As all of you know, I usually try out the latest Google devices, Samsung devices. Again, I didn't have much chance with the S23 Ultra this year, but I will actually have a decent chance with an S23 Plus soon to come. But like, yeah, the fact that we don't have like an officially like Google sanctioned DeX version that like Samsung then builds upon, which is much better for the overall system, it's such a shame to me.
Fold just feels like using a larger Pixel.
My cat
but
is
leaving
sleeping.
these software issues aside, they're both crazy fast and crazy fluid to use.
They're not.
Despite the Z Fold 5 having a much more powerful...
Like they launched, like they work well in the beginning when you have like fewer apps installed. You aren't testing games here or anything, which I actually think games are like the best use case for a foldable. But like, yeah, that performance difference, you will feel it in the long run. I promise you that. This has always been the case with Pixel devices. Like, unless this is like at 4,000 at least, like, I know it sounds a little arbitrary, but like for a device that you're paying this amount of money on, it's crazy to risk that, in my opinion, given the long history of Pixel slowing down.
Processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and UFS 4.0 storage, the Pixel Fold feels just as fast. The only issue with the Pixel Fold in terms of using it was the heat. I did find it to heat up quite dramatically. Even
okay. So it's fast
because
because it probably always runs its like maximum clock frequency. Awesome.
Best phones for watching content by far. So let's see how the speakers compare. So they were both good, but you could probably tell that Samsung had way more punch, and everything was way clearer on the Z Fold 5 compared to the Pixel Fold. When it comes to the battery, even though the Pixel Fold does have a physically larger battery, the battery life, for me at least, has just been okay. About a full day of use with moderate usage. It is quite early to judge the Z Fold 5, as we recently just got it, but based on my long-term usage with the Z Fold 4, I was able to get about a day and a half. So I would expect about the same from the Fold 5, given that it does have a much more power-efficient Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, but also brighter displays. In terms of charging, they both support fast
I
charging
always dislike this argument. Oh, like this display is brighter, so I will use it at that higher brightness regardless. Like that isn't objective battery life testing. Like, I understand, obviously, like, better features will encourage people to actually use the devices to the fullest. But if your Pixel, like, lost a day with moderate usage, with, like, a dimmer screen and stuff like that, at that point, you just have to say that it's bad battery life.
25 watts on the Fold 5 and 30 on the Pixel Fold.
Doesn't matter.
In reality, the Pixel Fold took forever to charge.
Yeah,
Most of the
probably
time,
because
it was
it's like an
charging at 5 watts to
ultra hot
12
device.
watts. I rarely
Yeah.
saw it get to even 20. In my case, it takes about close to 2 hours to fully charge the Pixel.
Yeah, you shouldn't really fold up those devices when charging, and I don't say that you're doing it wrong. I think just in general, the way those devices are constructed, the way that heat will build up in between, I don't like the core idea of foldables, but yeah, you should unfold them for charging.
So full as opposed to about an hour or so on the Z Fold. So yeah, pretty big difference here. One more thing to mention is that there is S Pen support for the Z Fold 5.
Very
which is great for
important,
sketching or
actually.
editing photos in
A
Lightroom
shame
or
that
taking
it's not
notes.
built
However,
into the
you
device.
cannot store it inside a phone like you can with the S23 Ultra, and you have to buy it separately.
Yeah,
So
I
all
think
in all, which one should you
55
go
pounds
for?
is
Well,
fair.
I think it's quite clear that the Z Fold 5 is the superior device in every
Thank
single way,
God.
aside from the outer screen. I can really only recommend the Pixel Fold if you're able to get it at a very low price, maybe a few months after the release or on eBay. Otherwise, the Z Fold 5 is where it's at least for now. If you want to buy any of those, you can use the link.
Okay, so I think that I'm very glad that the comparison is actually definitive. The conclusion is like clear that yeah, if you want a foldable, get the Galaxy Z Fold 5. I actually think that you should get the S Pen, even though it's kind of cumbersome the way it's implemented with the case. But yeah, guys, do you think, like, for anybody who's actually there, unless I'm talking to the void and like the view counter is just wrong, should we watch like maybe like Marquez's video like about the Z Flip, or do you have any other suggestions, like who else has like a decent video on like foldables recently? Basically, again, I've been waiting on like MrMobile, but MrMobile, Michael Fisher, has like only one video from like when the Z Fold and Flip were announced, but not actually reviews. So do you have any suggestions what we could watch? Because quite honestly, I don't know what would be exciting to you in this context. Like last time, you actually guys had some great suggestions for surfing around, and I might just look for something myself while we do this. So yeah, I've reacted to Marquez. Like the durability, I don't think that matters that much. By the way, like crazy for this video, I will leave it a like. It's like it has like 38,000 views for like a 1.5 million subscriber channel for like relatively like relevant hardware. Like is like ZONEofTECH, is like Daniel's audience like either not interested in those devices at all, or is there like some problem with viewer retention for him? Like that's bad. Like obviously I would love to see 37,000 views in 2 days, but like for a channel of this size, it should be like at 100,000 at the very least. So what else do we have? If like, okay, more ZONEofTECH videos. Yeah, this is like there's also like German videos, so that would be a little problematic to show off. Yeah, the recommendations really aren't that relevant, so let's just look at Flip 5. Okay, Austin Evans. Guys, please very quickly, anybody, would you like to know what Austin thinks of the Z Flip 5 and why he's never going back? Again, like, like the power of views, right? Like 3 days, 2.5 million views for Flip 5. That's incredible for Marquez. Like Marquez really has lost zero popularity. It's quite insane. But like his video doesn't say that much. Like it's not like that it's lazy. I think it like reflects a little bit on like the lack of excitement that most people have for the this foldable generation. So I don't know. Oh my god, what is this?
The Flip 5 still sports a deeper, more severe crease where it flexes.
Okay. I will be
Speaking of flexes, here's a
reacting
weird
to
one.
this. Okay.
If you're the type to press your phone into double duty as a PC,
This
you can
is
do
like
that
a
with the
double
Razr
live
using
stream, guys,
Motorola
for
Ready
you.
Samsung could do the same thing with DeX if it wanted to, but so far, it steadfastly refuses to add that feature to its flip phones. And then there's the IP rating. Samsung has the edge for immersion with its IPX8 certification versus Motorola's IP5.
Okay, it's
but that
okay. We can see what other people are saying here,
A lot
right?
more likely than dropping your phone in a pool. And that 5 means dust can't hurt the Razr, while the Galaxy Flip relies on brushes within the hinge to keep the grid out.
Okay, so nothing really
maybe we'll
that
call that one
interesting.
Where Samsung really claps back with a vengeance is in an area that surprised me: day-to-day usability.
Okay, we will start at the beginning. I think that's fair because it's not like I'm not that interested in the chat here. So I think that actually like this is kind of the MrMobile video that I've been waiting for. So you guys can let me know if you basically like it or not.
First, Galaxy. Motorola took the paddles to... Well over 3 years ago, Motorola took the paddles to the old flip phone and kickstarted the clamshell revival with the resurrected Razr. But it didn't get to bask in the nostalgic glory too long, because just a few months later, Samsung came for Motorola's milkshake with a direct competitor.
I
the
drink
first
your
Galaxy Z
milkshake.
Flip. Flash forward to a little under 3 months ago, and I started to think history might be trying to repeat itself. Because while I really like Motorola's Razr Plus that dropped in June, the reality is that it's a phone built around one killer feature: a huge cover screen that lets this flip phone double as a tiny phone. With not much else to set the Razr apart, all Samsung would need to do to crush it would be to release an updated Galaxy Flip that did the same thing. And lo and behold, Samsung has done just that. I'm not going to bury the lead here. If you score your smartphone comparisons based on pragmatic considerations or objective measures, then Samsung is it. The Galaxy Flip 5 wins. But I say this all the time, with flip phones in particular, practicality is not the end-all be-all. People buy clamshells for style and feel more than speeds and feeds. And while this Razr may not be as distinctive as its predecessors, its flowing lines do give it a bit more flair than the boxy, slab-sided Samsung. The Razr's compound curves also make it feel thinner, even though it's not. And both frosted glass and pleather versions stand out better than Samsung's flat, unfortunately glossy glass. And the Razr's cover display also feels like the more ambitious one. It's sharper, it's faster, and the fact that it spills around in between the cameras seems somehow cool.
Okay, I haven't spoken in a while, so I'm glad that I found this video. I wish I would have known that this premiere was coming up. For some reason, I've checked like the channel an hour ago, and for some reason it wasn't showing me that this would be happening. But like, yeah, the Motorola external screen actually looks kind of cool. I think Samsung's kind of looks a little unfinished, and the fact that one runs faster is, I think it's like more energy efficient, right? As well, but like, yeah, that to me is
Cooler than Samsung's.
it's
no
crazy
frills
because
file
Samsung
folder
obviously supplies most
Inside,
smartphone screens.
Motorola scores a small win in the crease category as well. While Samsung has finally figured out a hinge that can fold flat, the Flip 5 still sports a deeper, more severe crease where it flexes. Speaking of flexes, here's a weird one. If you're the type to press your phone into double duty as a PC, you can do that with the Razr using Motorola Ready 4. Samsung could do the same thing with DeX if it wanted to.
Yes, 1 point, 1 extra point against the Flip, which is what we just talked about with the Fold. The Fold has actually a good feature with DeX, and for some reason the Flip phones don't get it, regardless of it using super similar hardware. Like, that to me is just bananas. Like, people talk like arbitrary like feature segmentation on iPhones, and there are some, like, I would argue that like Pro Raw, for example, has no business being like restricted to the Pro phones or something like that, especially now that the non-Pro phones have more RAM. But like, come on, like, at what point should the Flip just be unleashed in that regard?
Far, it steadfastly refuses to add that feature to its Flip phones. And then there's the IP rating. Samsung has the edge for immersion with its IPX8 certification versus Motorola's IP52, but that too will get you through a rainstorm, which is a lot more likely than dropping your phone in a pool. And that 5 means dust can't hurt the Razr, while the Galaxy Flip relies on brushes within the hinge to keep the grit out. So maybe we'll call that one a draw. Where Samsung really claps back with a vengeance is in an area that surprised me. Day-to-day usability.
Yeah, I like the
Let's
user
start with the way these phones
interface of
feel.
like the outer
The
screen.
Galaxy Flip 5 is rock solid, a unified monoblock
Okay,
that feels
so
like
we're
a single solid piece when it's closed. By comparison, the Razr flexes slightly with just the hint of a creak.
I don't think that
When you
matters
open them
that
up,
much.
Samsung's hinge not only keeps the phone locked at a wider range of angles, it also delivers smooth, consistent friction through the
Yeah,
whole
like, as a
range
giant
of
Star
modes.
Trek fan, I love that.
Motorola's hinge
That's like
feels,
the thing,
for lack of a better
like,
word,
and
lumpier.
he had like that cute reference to like the Deep Space Nine episode for like trouble that intercrossed with like Trouble with Tribbles from like the original series. So yeah, I think MrMobile is also a Star Trek fan.
To make sure it wasn't just me, I passed around both phones at lunch during my recent family vacation, and my siblings all agreed that Samsung's hinge is the clear winner.
Wait, all his siblings? How many does he have?
Then we come to the cover screen. All due respect to my fellow reviewers, but the difference here is not in full screen apps. Both of these phones will let you run those outside. Yes, Samsung makes you jump through a couple extra hoops to get there, but that takes at most 5 minutes, and you only need to do it once. From my perspective, the difference is what you can do with these closed phones when you're not running full apps. And here, the Galaxy Flip 5 scores major points. Like, I'm someone who wants his phone to show the clock all the time. Samsung lets me do that at the price of about 1% of battery drain per hour.
Yeah, this is not an LTPO screen. It has zero capability of like running at like 1 hertz or something. This will be a big detriment to battery life if you're doing anything on that outer screen except for like showing a simple clock and like the date.
And there's now the option to replace the enigmatic orange
Oh yeah,
dot with
there it is.
useful notification icons. So I can just glance at my phone at any time and see what's going on. By contrast, the Motorola always stays dark, unless you touch it or pick it up. Samsung also gives you more options to customize the cover screen, with support for animated wallpapers, many more widgets.
Okay, like the Star Trek references keep piling up. I love that. We went from like Captain Sisko and Dax to like Captain Picard. So yeah, that's quite cool. It's for now that's the part I like most, and this is what I wanted to like. I think this is like a very well made user interface. unless I'm crazy or anything, I think this is very well designed. I think the individual apps having like this Apple Watch-esque like simple design specifically for like, especially like the timer here. Like, look, this looks very similar to what you will find on the Apple Watch, which I'm not even saying it's stolen. I think they could also be stealing from their own watch interface and something. But I actually think this is really well made, and that's the thing that I like most about the Z Flip 5.
And tapping small touch targets is much easier on the Flip 5 than on the Razr for some reason.
Why?
Samsung even brought over some of the same snackable games from Google, which means, yes, Samsung too has stack bounce.
Yeah, I know my MrMobile likes like stack bounce, or I don't even remember what that app is called half the time. Like, is it really that important?
Now, to be clear, the Razr Plus isn't worse so much as it is different. Using the Razr when it's closed just feels like using a smaller version of the phone. The UI is mostly the same, and you can even multitask out here if you want. Using the Flip 5 when it's closed feels like using a Galaxy Watch. There's always this abstraction.
Pre-watch on the Premiere video.
Almost like you're using it in child mode or something. Example, when I get a two-factor authentication challenge on the Razr, it takes over the screen, and I can respond with one tap. On the Flip 5, it opens in this sandbox that doesn't let me take action on it unless I open the phone. I can't expand Facebook messages on the Flip 5 like I can on the Razr. The Razr gives me more quick settings to choose from, and I can long press on them for more options. On the Galaxy, kid mode again. When I want to type on the cover, the Razr lets me use the same Gboard preference I've selected for the inside, while the Flip 5 makes me use the Samsung keyboard. Terrible dictation and all. The Galaxy also gives me duplicate notifications that I don't get on the Razr. I don't know why this is. And finally,
okay,
no
so it's basically both are unfinished, right? One is just too simplistically taking like the pre-existing smartphone user interface and just basically copy pasta it onto the outer screen, which it's not suited for. The other is trying to oversimplify it and killing potentially important system functionality, forcing you to open the phone, which in my opinion isn't bad. But if you're investing like money and resources and marketing power into getting people to use that larger outer screen, that's something very different in my opinion.
To continue to use apps in small mode when closing the Samsung, as there is on the Motorola. So, what's more compelling? Mature and useful widgets, or power user toggles and pop-ups?
Mature and useful widgets, no question.
What's more annoying? The lack of an AOD, or a big screen that thinks it's a smartwatch screen? See, in my view, there's no...
What? Well, the lack of an AOD, that's the Motorola downside. And the other downside is that it's a smart... I don't think it's a downside if a small screen works more akin to a smartwatch. I think that's actually smart.
Clear winner.
Smart watch.
I mean, this is purely a matter of preference.
Yeah, sure.
That kind of ambiguity, as you can probably see, does not extend to the cameras. Or at least it doesn't stick around for long. If you caught my Razr Plus review, then you'll know that choosing between flip phone cameras is mostly a matter of deciding what flavor of average you can live with.
Or bad.
Take these shots I took with the Davids on a recent evening as the Unlocker filmed his Flip 5 review.
Flip.
Sometimes you're the
Looks
oyster.
Better on the Razr.
Sometimes you're the clam. Sometimes you're the cocktail. Sometimes you're the
better
pills.
on the Flip.
Sometimes you're the Coaster.
Looks better on the Razr. Both look bad.
If you're saying, Michael, there's no inherent value to either side of any of those. It's a total mixed bag. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes I prefer the Motorola, and
Razr.
sometimes the Samsung. But no matter which I'm using,
Still Motorola,
I
in my
always
opinion.
wish the camera was a Pixel or a 23 Ultra. There is a bit of polarity we can parse when it comes to the flip phone's greatest photo feature, tripod mode. Palm detection on the Z Flip 5 is straightforward. You hold up your hand and it takes a photo. Palm detection on the Razr Plus, well, does it like an open hand? Sometimes. A closed hand? Some other times. Sometimes you're the bloody, sometimes you're the merry. Switch over to the ultra-wide, and if you're like me, you'll wonder why Motorola even bothered to install this 108-degree weak sauce.
Why did
Barely fits anything
either of them included? It looks bad on both.
Motorola has one clever camera win here, and that is its ability to toss a viewfinder on the cover screen even when you're using a third-party app like Instagram. I love that.
Okay.
But it's muddied in the execution. Because unfortunately, the minute you bend the phone past 90 degrees, it automatically kicks you out of that. I mean, I don't know why it shipped like this. Bottom line, sometimes Motorola's main camera kicks out the better shot, but overall, the Galaxy Flip 5 is the camera I would take and the camera I would trust.
Yeah, they're both bad by modern standards.
It's
modern
precisely
flagship
that kind
standards.
of death by a thousand cuts that you want to avoid when you're going head-to-head with your most lethal competitor at the same price point. But the cuts do keep coming for the Razr Plus. The Motorola phone has the older processor, an excellent one, but older nonetheless, and it runs a little hotter. Battery life has been similar, a full day of moderate use on each phone, but the Razr's wireless charging tops out at 5 watts, and you can't charge your earbuds from it, as you can with the 15-watt Galaxy Flip 5. Samsung sports brighter displays, both inside and out, which makes a ton of difference in the sunny summer season. Samsung's vibration motor is tighter. Its software has more features, like Flex Mode panel, and I never pull the Flip 5 out of my pocket to find its call.
I will have to say that
Open
feature
something.
like looks cool, but it's the kind of feature that you will never actually use unless you force yourself to. Like, how many of you would sit down, unfold like a flip-like device, then put it in front of you, use like now like what is like a 3.5-inch screen for like a trackpad, so that you could scroll up and down like a time feed that is now cut in half in comparison to what you usually see, in comparison to just opening it up, getting the entire field of view, so you actually have to do like less scrolling. I'm sorry, I for some reason was looking at the iPad, not the actual camera on my laptop. Why would you do that?
App accidentally. The Razr does that too often. Finally, the Galaxy Flip 5 is bound to sell in more numbers, so it will enjoy more accessory support from folks like my sponsor, D-Brand.
Oh,
As you know,
I
I'm
thought
not
it
a
would
big
be Spigen again.
fan of big old cases, so D-Brand is sponsoring this video. Personally, I love the Motorola product. And emotionally,
Really?
I
What?
prefer it.
What?
I enjoy telling people when they ask what crazy phone I'm using now that, yeah, this is the new Razr. The name still conjures fond memories. And for my use,
this is such like this is like such marketing victim behavior. Oh yeah, I'm using a crazy phone. It's technically somewhat related to the Motorola Razr in branding and nothing but else, because the core company has like changed hands like, oh my god, like over and over again. Like, I don't want to use any dirty things here. It's like, come on. Like, I understand like cool hardware is cool and stuff like that, but really, you're like, oh, I'm using a Razr. Like, yeah, I love it for being a Razr, even it has like trash cameras, worse battery life, and outdated, like at least a worse processor for the same price. Like, come on.
Motorola's cover screen philosophy is the one that helps me more often. But if there's a contender here that delivers the more consistent experience, the one that truly feels like it's on its 4th year of making foldables, it's Samsung. A
Yeah.
company that's had its sights on Motorola from the beginning.
Yeah, at least give some credit where credit's due. Samsung Foldables aren't even that good, but they're leagues and bounds ahead of garbage like this. And I'm not even saying that like Motorola is incapable of making something better, but like, come on, like they didn't even like sell their Razr phones like worldwide for most of the time, because they knew that most people would not buy it, and now suddenly they're like, oh yeah, we are so great. Come on.
The company that reviewers like me have said for years needs competition. Well, Motorola is helping fight Samsung's complacency just by existing, and that's a good thing. But in foldables, more so than most phones, existing just isn't enough. This video was produced following several weeks with the Galaxy Flip 5 and about 2
Okay,
months
okay,
with the Razr
so the stream I think is getting a little long, isn't it? It's like, how long is it now? It's a little over an hour now. Wow, okay, this was interesting, but also somewhat like superficial. I think like the battery testing really is what annoys me a little bit in most tests, where I think like you could be doing much better with testing, like saying, oh, I this was like the legitimate on-screen time, and like I don't know, especially I know it's difficult, especially with like dual screen devices like this. The cameras, I think he should have been way more harsher on the Galaxy as well. They both have trash cameras. I think the fact that the Z Flip 5 is like less trashy doesn't excuse it for being like a $1,000 phone with like a camera from like a $400 phone. So yeah, that's also part of it. Just in general, I think that MrMobile is like very charitable towards foldables in general. For some reason he also likes like the flip design, even though he like repeatedly has said like just how more powerful and productive the fold design basically is. So it's kind of like this weird like, oh, I like it by association, even though like realistically he would be better served by having a fold and then having like even like a Galaxy S23, not even like a Plus or an Ultra. If you really wanted to have something something small and pocketable, he would be better off with that. Like no crease, much better cameras, better battery life, much better bang for your buck. So I really don't get it. Am I crazy for this? Like I don't know. It feels like when you like both, I think you, of course, covering both as like your profession, that's one thing. But like whenever he says like, oh, I love the Motorola, for what exactly? It's like, is it because it launched a few weeks earlier? Do you like it for that? Do you like it that it came out with the larger outer screen before the flip? But like that's like, again, like the fact that Samsung isn't even using like an LTPO screen for the outer, or an LTPO panel for the outer screen, which means it will be terrible for battery life. It will have a much higher risk of burn-in, which again, it's not even like me being like facetious here or like overly uncharitable towards Samsung. Like I have seen like Galaxy S10s and stuff like that with burn-ins, significant burn-ins, and yeah, it makes sense because those were the screens before LTPO and stuff like that. And whenever people were forcing them to do like always on display shit, it was bad for the screen. So I wouldn't want to use an outer screen like that, which for MrMobile it might not matter because obviously he can switch phones at whim, on whim basically, and he will switch them for like testing every year anyway, and basically even like every 3 months or so whenever there's like a relevant new phone out. But to me, like, I don't know, this looked way too charitable. I think the fold design is superior, and I did like Daniel's coverage here. In both comparisons here, Samsung actually won, so at least that was consistent with my expectations, and I think both guys have done a really decent job in the type of comparison that was needed. I think they should have both been harsher on the downsides of the form factor currently and the price, especially given the pricing. But it is what it is, and I am basically now running out of energy. I appreciate all you guys joining. We've had some really great streams now back to back. I now have to go to bed. I will let you know when my next stream is. That one will definitely be probably Apple themed. Depends on if we get like some Mark Gurman news maybe tomorrow. So I would probably do something on Monday, at the very latest I think on Tuesday. But again, I will let you know. As always, thank you guys so much. Don't be afraid now, because you will probably see my face for longer than expected, because I don't trust OBS. But don't forget my Patreon as well. And this is MrMobile saying thank you again and tuning out.